In this video, we're going to go through the stages of creating a model of an open book in Aspire. I'm going to use some pre-created vectors in order to create the cover and the shape for the pages. I'm going to show you how to make the duplicate copy of the pages and use the distortion tool in order to edit them to give them a little bit more shape, as we can see in the image on the screen. Finally, we'll show how to create the inner spine shape and to smooth everything before you go ahead and create rough, finish and cut out toolpaths on it. To begin, we'll open a copy of Aspire. Let's start this example by clicking Open an existing file. From the Book Project folder, we're going to select the file 1 Book Vectors and hit Open. Here we can see the vectors that we've got in our part. If I click the layer manager, we can see these are on 3 layers. If I switch off the layers, I can see that I have one layer with the page outline, one with the vectors for the 2-rail sweep for the page. So let's switch both of those off, and I'm going to switch on the cover vectors layer. Make sure that's selected so that it's the current layer. We can see that here. Hit hide. And this has the vectors in it which are going to let us model our cover shape for our book. I'm going to go up to View, tile the windows horizontal. We're going to use the 2-rail sweep function, so let's click on the Modeling tab. I'm going to use these 2 straight vectors as the rails and then this vector as the cross section. So let's select this vector first on the left, hold Shift and select this vector in the middle, Shift and select this vector which is going to be the cross section. Let's go into the 2-rail sweep. We can see from the lines going between the rails that this shape would be twisted if we created it as is. So we're going to choose to reverse rail 2 direction so that we've got nice even lines going between them, and we know now our rails are both going in the same direction. I'm going to choose the option to scale cross section with width, as I would like the height of it to taper as it gets further away from us. I'm going to hit Apply. I'm going to change the name to Cover, change the combine mode to Merge and hit Close. So there we've created our first component. Next we want to crop this back to the actual outline that we want to use for it. So we're going to select it, Shift and select the outline. We're going to click on Clear Area of Selected Component outside the vector, outside the second selected object. And there we have the left hand side of our cover. Next we're going to select that and we're going to make the right hand side. We're going to use the shortcut Control Shift H in order to make a horizontal copy of that. Then I'm going to select both of those parts, and now we can go over to the component tree, right mouse click and choose the option to group them together into a single component. Next we're going to add a little extra thickness to the cover here and a little roundness to the edge, a bit more definition like a hardcover on a book would have. To do this, I'm going to create a duplicate copy and almost create like a double edge to the part, one that's slightly larger than the other, and then smooth those two together. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to duplicate it, right mouse click and select duplicate from the component tree. I'm going to select the top copy that we've got here, come to the properties, and I'm going to put in properties of add a base height of 0.05 and close. I'm going to come to the second one and I'm going to say set selected object size, link XY checked. I'm going to put in a value of 12.4 and hit apply. So that's going to make a slightly larger but slightly lower copy of the book. And then I'm going to take that second one that's selected first, hold Shift down and select the first one and use the icon to align top. So it's going to align the top of those 2 objects. And you can see what we've created there is by adding the base height, a slightly higher version at the top, and then by increasing the size of the lower one we've just added a little extra definition to the bottom here. Now I'm going to select both of these component groups. I'm going to right mouse click and group them together. Then I'm going to go to the properties again. This time I'm going to change the height of the whole group to 0.3 and add a base height of 0.5 just to raise that up a little bit as well. So we can see we've just compressed that down a bit, but we've also raised up the whole of the book and that's just added a little extra definition, a little extra thickness here. And then to finish that off, I'm going to take that and use the smooth command. Software tells me it needs to bake it, which is okay. Once those components are baked together, then we can come into the smooth tool and I can just increase this pretty much to the end, I think in this case, and hit OK. And we can see what that's done is just added that extra thickness and definition to the edge of the book so that we don't have the hard drop-off that we had when we just had the single component. This stage I'm going to right mouse click, say rename, we'll just call that new component cover. Going to go up to File, Save As, and we'll save this as 2 book cover. So if you wanted to see that, you'll be able to open that file from the book folder on the disk. Next stage is to create the pages for our book. I'm going to switch off the cover component for the moment. Into the Drawing tab, click on the Layer Manager, switch off the Cover Vectors layer. I'm going to switch on the 2-rail sweep layer, Page 2-rail sweep, hit Hide. Next I'm going to use the 2-rail sweep function again to extrude the main shape for our page. So I'm going to select this left vector, shift and select the right vector, shift and select the cross section, come to the Modeling tab, choose the 2-rail sweep option, going to scale the cross section with the width, give the component the name page, set it to merge and hit apply and close. Next I'm going to come back to the Drawing tab. I'm actually going to switch on the Layer Manager again, switch on the Page Outline layer, and I'd like to move the grayscale onto that layer. So I'm going to select it, right mouse click, move to Layer, Page Outline, and switch off the Page 2-rail sweep layer and make sure the Page Outline layer is selected as my current layer. And to finish this off, we'll select that grayscale, shift and select the outline vector, come back to the Modeling tab and click on the crop function to clear the area of that component outside the selected vector, and there we have the model for the first of our pages. Next stage is to create a number of copies of our page to fill the book. I would like to do that somewhat in reference to the cover as well. So I'm going to switch on the cover component. I'm going to come onto the Drawing tab, click on the layers. What I'm going to do now is switch on the Cover Vectors layer so we can see the grayscale for the cover as well. I'm going to select that grayscale, shift and select the page grayscale, right mouse click and move both of those onto a new layer that I'm going to call Page Grayscales, and I'm going to make that visible and active and hit OK, and then just switch off all the other layers and hide that, so that now we have our grayscale for our page and a grayscale for the cover as well. And before we make the copies of the page, it would be worth us adjusting the depths and base height of each of our components that we have now so that they relate well together. I'm going to click on the cover, click on the properties. I'm actually going to come into here and change the shape height down to 0.3. We'll lower that down a little bit, and then we'll click on the page, and what I'm going to do with that is actually lower that down to 0.3 as well, but then I'm going to put on a base height of 0.1. We can see now that's just raised that up above the height of the cover there, so they're in the right orientation with each other. Let's hit close, go back to the Z view. And for good measure at this stage, let's save the file. Go to File, Save As, and we'll call it 3 book page and hit Save, and that's in the book project folder. Now to create the copies of our page component, I'm going to paste them along a curve. And when you paste along a curve, it always positions the object, the center of the object at the end of the curve as it pastes it along. So in this case, because I have my object in the correct position to start with and I'd like it to paste from here, I need to make sure the curve comes from the center of this object. To find the center of the object, or to be able to draw from it, an easy way to do it is to come onto the Drawing tab here. I'm going to draw a polyline. I'm just going to sketch a short straight line. I'm going to select this object, shift and select the page, and choose the option to center objects, and that's going to center the line that I created in the middle of the bounding box of the object that I've got here. So now the middle of this object, or at least the middle as it's interpreted by the paste along a curve function, will be the center point of this line. So if I come and I'll just zoom in a little, choose the option to draw polyline, I'm going to snap to the midpoint of that line, and then I'm going to come down here and we'll go length 0.8, angle 30. You can see the values being displayed on the screen there. Click and then right mouse click to close that. I'm going to select the line and delete that. It was just there for construction. I'm going to select this curve here, zoom in a bit, hit node editing, hit B on the keyboard to turn that into a Bezier span. Carefully select just the two inner nodes and then just add a little curvature into those. Then we can come over and click on selection mode to go out of node editing and hit F to fit that back into the window. Now let's click on the Modeling tab. I'm going to select the object we want to copy, shift and select that vector, come over under Edit Objects and choose the function to copy object along vectors. Want to copy the object, want to specify a number of copies, so we're going to check this and put in a value of 6. Want to make sure that Align Vectors to Curve and Create Copies on a New Layer are both unchecked, and go ahead and hit Copy. And that's just going to create the copies flowing down that curve. You can see if we zoom in the 3D view and look at the edge, the curvature that we generated there has been indicated in the way that those parts have been copied as well. We can go ahead now and just hit close. Now you can see if you look in the component tree that we actually have 7 pages, and that's basically because we have 2 copies of our original. We have the original one and a copy of it going along on the curve. So what I would do is just select the first object in the list here, and we can right mouse click and delete that so that we don't have a duplicate copy. Now you can see as we come top to bottom, we've got each of the pages in there that we've created. The next stage is to add some height to each subsequent page to raise it above the one below it. So you can see at the moment they're all at the same height. If we just put that into an ISO view and zoom in so we can see it, what we're going to do is select the first page in the list. This is the bottom page that we've got there. That one we shouldn't actually need to change because it looks like it has the right relationship we want with the cover. So I'm actually going to select the second one, come to the Properties tab, and in here I'm going to add an extra 0.05 to the base height, so the total will be 0.15. For the next one I'm going to add another 0.05 to that, so that will become 0.2. The next one will become 0.25. The next one will become 0.3, and then the last one will become 0.35. And if I hit space after that and apply it, we can see that that has graduated up each of those pages so that we have the look and the flow as if those pages were coming down and over and in the correct order. At this stage I'm going to save this. We'll call it File, Save As, and we'll call it 4 book pages so that we can see that we've made our duplicate copies now of those pages, and hit save, and you can find that file in the project folder for this book.